Sunny by Jason Reynolds, Chapter 7. Thursday. Dear Diary, you know how I always say I was born in the middle of a hurricane? Well, that's true. But I realized last night that maybe I was born in the middle of two, and this morning felt like a third. It started the usual way Thursdays start. No, it didn't. It didn't start the usual way at all. Aurelia was late. My father was already gone to work by the time the doorbell rang, and when I opened it, there she was, holding a paper bag with our sausage biscuits in it. She said there had been an accident, and as soon as she said it, I thought about Patty's aunt, who got in a car accident a few weeks ago, and that scared me. But then I knew nothing was wrong because Aurelia was standing in front of me with her arms and her legs and head connected to her body. So I knew she was okay. And because of that, I went from being all the way scared to all the way happy, and wrapped myself around her and squeezed tight. Aurelia is like my best friend. I don't need her to ever be accidented. Ever. Then she said she wasn't in an accident, somebody else was, but that it was just a fender bender and everybody was being nosy, and we better hurry up and eat so we can get going. Diary, the sausage biscuits were cold. We warmed them up, and that made them hot, but also hard. But I had to eat, and I didn't want to seem ungrateful because Aurelia bought them for us. So I started choking mine down, and then I actually choked, mid-chokedown. A chunk of bread that had scientifically become a stone in the microwave got stuck in my throat, and well, I started to panic. There are things that happen when you panic, especially when you're choking. Things I never knew. I had never choked before. The first thing you do is think you're going to die. That's also the second thing you do. And then you start pointing at yourself. It's weird. Every time I see someone choke in the movies, the people they're with never seem to notice. And I always thought that was fake, until it happened to me. Aurelia was sitting right in front of me, looking right in my face, and she couldn't tell I was choking and thinking about dying and thinking about dying again until I pointed to myself, to my mouth and throat. And then the guessing game began. Sunny? Then, you choking? Ding, 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 correctamundo on the first try. I'm choking, I yelled in my head, but it just sounded like cack, cack, kick, all of which are basically the word choke without the vowel sounds. That's what choking does. It eliminates vowels. I realized that too. Then Aurelia jumped up and screamed what we both already knew. You're choking! Now, this is the part that I didn't expect. No one really knows what to do. Not me, not Aurelia, not even you, Diary. So I did the first thing I could think of, and no, it wasn't dance. I just started throwing things, like really throwing things, but knocking things around. I spun and swiped the rest of the breakfast off the island, even Aurelia's. Then I staggered backward and knocked the dish soap and paper towels and basically everything off the counter onto the kitchen floor. I don't know why, just a reaction. When you choking, you just have to move. Can't just stay still when there's a chewable but not so chewable golf ball stuck in your throat, cutting your air. Aurelia also didn't know what to do, so she ran over to me and told me to turn around and started beating on my back, which, let me tell you, doesn't work. Then she threw her arms around me, grabbed me around my stomach, and just started yanking me and pulling me towards her, which I guess was supposed to be the Heimlich maneuver. And she did that for a while, and I kept hacking, and eventually, guess what? It didn't come up. It just went down. That was breakfast. That's how the day started, with me almost choking to death on a hot piece of a too hard biscuit. And after I got over how scary it was, we laughed about it. It can only go up from here. Dear Diary, I'm sure you could probably guess that me and Aurelia were late to the hospital. When we finally got there, Gramps was in the lobby already. But he wasn't waiting for us. He was talking to Patty's aunt. The same aunt I had just been thinking about when Aurelia came to the door talking about car accidents. Now, Diary, I don't know if this is true, but I might be one of those special people who make things happen by thinking about them. So I'm going to try to remember to think about throwing the discus on Saturday morning. I'm going to imagine myself throwing it a long, long way. I'm also going to imagine my father laughing, and I'm going to do that right now. Anyway, Patty's aunt was talking to my grandfather and telling him something about how hard it's been for her to depend on other people since she broke her arm, and how Patty is doing the best she can, but she doesn't want to distract Patty from school and running. Then Gramps introduced me to her, and before she could say anything, I just gave her a hug because I had just been thinking about her, which now that I think about it might have been weird. even weirder than a wave. I also didn't think about how a hug could hurt, especially when your arm's broken. I apologized and told her that I only hugged her because I know her, from practice, and that I was Sunny. Guess what, diary? She called me a celebrity and said she'd heard a lot about me and how I was going to be the first thrower for the Defenders. I told her that was true, but that I might not be as good of a thrower as was as a runner. And she said she thinks I can throw the discus a mile, maybe even 2. Diary, I wanted to tell her that was impossible, but she was so nice and she already had a broken arm, and I had already almost died, so I felt like maybe we should let some of the small things slide. She thanked my grandfather again, then told me she'd tell Patty she saw me. And once she went to catch her ride, Gramps asked me and Aurelia what took us so long. Aurelia told him it was a long story and that it didn't matter because we were there and we were ready. But Gramps didn't look good. He looked like something was happening behind his skin, like his thoughts were making his stomach hurt, like they were milk that had become glue in his gut. Dear Diary, I know I said a while ago that my day can only go up from here, but like I said, Mr. Rufus deserves his own entry. There's something weird that happens when your grandfather, who is a doctor, tells you your favorite patient of his took a turn. Took a turn doesn't mean what it means on the track when you take a turn. It doesn't mean what it means when you're doing a puzzle and you take a turn to put a piece in. It means upside down. It means not good. It means stuff like amniotic embolism or, in Mr. Rufus's case, coma. There's something weird that happens when you hear he's fighting for his life. There's a feeling that comes over you, that came over me, sounded like ksh, the same sound of a crowd going wild or a TV on a bad channel. I felt like a TV on a bad channel, like I didn't have a signal and couldn't get a clear picture. It's weird for nothing to be a feeling. The feeling of nothing is still a thing, and it sounds like ksh, and it feels like falling in slow motion. But I was somehow able to say, in regular motion, that I wanted to go see him. Mr. Rufus changed overnight, like even though he's just in a deep sleep he might never wake up from, his face looked completely different. I can't really say if he looked like he had become older all of a sudden, or if he maybe went backward and became an infant again. I don't know, but it's kind of seemed like both. Gramps said that there was no point in us doing our dance routine because Mr. Rufus wouldn't be able to see us. But if I wanted to talk to him, he could hear me. So I sat next to his bed. I didn't really know what to say to him. I only know him from coming to the hospital twice a week and dancing for him. But he's the one who always danced with us. He always bopped around in his bed and laughed, and it was kind of like he understood me just by doing that. I figured I could share whatever was on my mind. I didn't know what else to really talk about. So I leaned over and whispered in his ear and told him I almost choked to death this morning. Gramps said, "What?" and almost freaked out, but then caught himself and told me to keep going. And I explained how weird it was and how I couldn't breathe and I couldn't speak and I was scared. So I pretty much wrecked everything around me. And I told him how Aurelia was sitting right in front of me and she couldn't tell I was choking. How she was looking right at me. I admitted that I didn't know why I was telling him this, and then I guess I just needed to tell someone how scared I was. Then I switched up on him and told him my birthday was on Saturday. And as soon as I said that, I thought about how maybe that's not a good thing to talk about while Mr. Rufus is in a coma. So I stopped there. Because, diary, I could feel myself diarrheaing. So I paused, just gathered my thoughts, which is sometimes hard for me to do because they are all over my head. Some are in the back, and some are in the front, and some are tucked just behind my ears, and others pressing hard against my eyes. And a few, I think, are at the tip top of my head. Thoughts that just want to sprout out and be like antennas or something like that. Maybe they would find a signal to clear up the picture. And I thought about telling Rufus all this, but then I thought maybe Rufus would like to hear about something more interesting. Baraka. I asked him if he'd ever seen it. Then I told him, not Barack Obama. Baraka. I told him it doesn't have words or actors or nothing like that, but it's still pretty good. I told him Aurelia thinks it's about everything, that we're all moving, even when we're not moving. I told him that was the good news, that he's still moving. When I finished telling Mr. Rufus about how much I hoped he could see Baraka once he got out of his coma, and to not spend money on popcorn and nachos and gummy things because he wouldn't even be able to eat them, Gramps asked if there was anything else I wanted to say. And then it hit me. He could hear me. I think, every move, every action has a sound, has a tick or a boom or something. So I did the dance routine without the music, without the moves, but with the sound. And I ended with attitude. My kind of attitude. Mr. Rufus's kind of attitude. Not what, but wow. Dear Diary, because me and Aurelia were so late, most of our regular dance appointments were already getting their treatments or being visited by family, so we couldn't catch everyone. Mr. McAfee was already deep into nap time, so we decided to just leave. But before we did, Gramps wanted us to come back to his office. He said he had something for me. When we got there, he opened a drawer and pulled out a folder, and in that folder was a copy of a photo. Aurelia leaned over my shoulder to see it. My mother. It looked like she was at a party, maybe a barbecue or something. The picture was mostly a blur because she was in motion, but her face was clear. Gramps pointed to what looked like a whoosh of wind, which was apparently a bulging belly, and said that was me. Aurelia said she remembers the day it was taken. That was during the baby shower. Your mother was about to pop. Gramps said, if he recalls correctly, this was a few days before I was born. He said it might even be this exact day, but back then. And Aurelia covered her mouth, which meant it was probably true. She went on about how my mother didn't want a normal thing with gifts and games and all that. That she wanted to have a party, a real party. She wanted to dance even though she could barely move because of her belly. Aurelia said my mother wanted me to know that happiness felt like, to know what happiness felt like, no matter what, from the inside out. I stared at the photo, her face, my face in hers, my body in hers. Baraka all over again, the tears pushing against the back of my eyes, my thoughts interrupted by Aurelia's sniff, sniff, sniffle. Aurelia said she was sorry. I told her it was okay. Gramps told me to give the picture to my father. He said there are certain things he can't tell him. Certain things only she can. Dear Diary, practice was weird because I showed up with a photograph folded and stuffed in my sock, and a million things on my mind. Choking, Mr. Rufus, my mother. I tried to push everything back, into the trunk of my head as we all stretched, on Lou's count. Toe touches, high knees, jumping jacks, some other kind of toe touches, a different kind of high knee, some arm stretches, right, then left, then right, then everybody left me, as in left the track. It was Thursday, and Thursdays used to basically be sunny days because they were always my time to shine. This was our long-run practice, the practice to show and improve endurance. And endurance is my specialty. But now, because I don't run anymore, the rest of my team broke out without me, Whit leading the way while I stood on the field. By myself. Not totally by myself. Coach was there, but still. Coach brought over a milk crate full of discuses, clanging around like caveman plates. And while he was waddling from the weight of them, he yelled out that today was the day. Today is the day! Coach dropped the crate. He pulled one of the discuses out, flipped it in his hand, then handed it to me. Then he grabbed another for himself. Diary, holding a discus should be like holding a frisbee, but it's not. Not at all. And that was a surprise, because it's actually like holding, I've never held anything like it before. You have to lay it flat in your hand, and you just let your fingertips barely grip it. Not a real grip, just a tip grip. Coach demonstrated how to hold it, and I tried to copy, but it felt like the discus was going to slip out of my hand. Coach said I have to trust it. Said I have to know that it will move with me. Coach held it in his palm, then wound his torso, flipping his hand over so that the discus was on the underside. And when he brought his body back around, he flipped his palm back up. He repeated this over and over again. Then told me to try, but this time, try with trust. It all felt so strange, and it just got stranger as soon as I brought it back, because it slipped out of my hand and almost dropped on Coach's foot. but he moved just in time. I was embarrassed and scared for Coach's toes, but he was cool about it and just told me not to ruin his dancing career. I tried again and again, bringing it back and forth, following Coach's lead. He told me to spread my legs a little more, to open my stance and drop my butt down some, to sit on the invisible stool. Eventually, it started to feel better. Back and forth, swinging my arms, swinging the discus, winding it up. Coach reminded me the discus was all about technique. He said that even though it's heavy, it's not about strength, it's about movement. He said to consider this the third part of our very unique dance routine, which would be the 7th rule. Number 7, release. Dear Diary, it's best to have these in one place. Steps to a whoosh, whoosh, ah for optimal disc throwing. Number 1, stand straight, bend knees just a little. Number 2, spread arms like wings. Number 3, wind body back and forth with hands straight and stiff, cutting the air. Number 4, count to 3. Number 5, on 3, spin right leg 230 degrees around. Number 6, then go straight into a 180-degree turn, completing the second whoosh. Number 7, release. Dear Diary, did you know that you don't actually throw a discus? Right. What you do is you push it. Yes, push it. And the funny thing about that is, Coach kept saying it should feel natural. But how? I mean, the spinning feels natural, and Coach said if I'm spinning right, the discus will just move with me even though I'm barely holding it. But then I'm supposed to push it off my finger first, instead of letting it fly off the back of my hand. Coach demonstrated this. The first time he did it at half speed, and the discus didn't go too far. Then he did it again, this time full speed, and the discus still didn't go that far. I mean, it didn't go like a mile or nothing, but it definitely went. Again, this time the discus flew flatter and farther. Then it was my turn. And Diary, let's just say it didn't go so well. Turns out, throwing a discus is like nothing else. All I know is I was terrible at it. It was flying to the left and to the right, and when it was actually going straight, it was wobbly and clunky. Coach said to do it again, to trust it, to trust me. So I did it again. Again. I did it again. 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 After the second again, each time different than the last, my index finger rubbing raw from the steel. It was all feeling weird, which somehow felt not weird for me, if that makes sense. Until everybody started trickling back onto the track from the long run. Lynn came in first, Coach Witt running alongside her. Then came Kieran and Freddie and Patty and Crystal and Deja and Ghost and Lou and everyone else. Coach told them to stay off the track, shooing everybody over to the benches. Then he turned back toward me, told me to remember it's like dancing, a fluid movement, and then he could tell I was thinking about it too much. I took a deep breath, wound up again, holding another one of the coal plates in my hand. Lou yelled out, "Let's go, Sonny," and gave me a few claps. I could hear all the teeth sucking from all the way over there, probably because everyone figured he was just sucking up to take Aaron's spot as captain on the team. Either way, I appreciated it. I wound up again, back and forth, bending my knees and settling into my stance. And after the fourth wind, I tore into my spin once, then twice, and then I let the discus go. And it went. And it was perfectly flat, spinning like a record, headed right for the rest of the team. Coach yelled for everyone to look out. They scattered, and Diary, I'm so glad they did, because the discus smashed into the wooden bench, cracking it, knocking it over. Kieran barked my name. Lynn stood beside him, looking at me with mean eyes. It was just like the race, just like when I pulled up, the looks on their faces of surprise and disappointment, like I had done something wrong, like something was wrong with me, like I didn't belong at the only place I belonged. Dear Diary, if anyone ever calls you journal because you look like one and they want you to be one, or if your spiral backbone spins out again and you've come all loose and they mistake you for trash, or think you're unusable, I hope I have the courage to do for you what Lou, Ghost, and Patty did for me. Threaten their fingers until they call you by your name. Dear Diary, after the newbies got everybody off my back, and Coach gave his usual knock it offs and cut it outs, followed by his end of practice pep talk and how the best never rest, he hit me with a surprise. I have practice tomorrow. Coach said that even though tomorrow's Friday, I needed the extra day of practice to at least make sure I can get the discus out of my hand in a way that won't put people in danger. So yeah, that's happening. Dear Diary, you know how I describe the face Daryl sometimes makes? The stone turning into more stone? Well, today, his face was more of the melty face, and the stone, instead, seemed to fill up the space between us. And I could tell that both of us had thoughts going boom, boing, boing in our brains. Boing, boing in my brain like a jumping bean. Boing, boing in his brain like a jumping bean. Our brains and moon bounce at a party we want to invite each other to. And as we pulled into the driveway, Daryl sent me his version of an invitation. He said he was going out with Mr. Nico's sister tonight, Miss Linda. That's a good thing. Finally. And finally, Daryl also said, and this is the invitation part, that he was sorry about last night. And I knew what he meant. Dear Diary, Daryl's gone out, and right now I'm sitting on the floor in my room. I've been sitting here for a while now. I know I already asked you this, but I just have to ask again. Do you know what it feels like to feel like a murderer? I do. Do you know what it's like for something to be wrong with you? To be born incorrect? To be born a hurricane? I do. I've been thinking about my mother all day, since Gramps gave me the picture in his office, since I stuffed it in my sock. It's scratching me with every discus throw. I forgot to take it out and give it to Daryl when he got home. Forgot until I peeled my socks off and discovered it stuck to my sweaty ankle. Now I'm looking at it and thinking about her more. I've also been thinking about choking, not about being able to breathe, and about Mr. Rufus, about everything, but mostly her. Thinking about her dancing and who she was and who I am and who we could have been together. Wondering how things would have been different if she were here. Would I have ever been a runner? Would I have ever been a dancer? Would I be me? Maybe a different me. A me with more mother, that's for sure. I should stop here, I think. I should. Dear Diary, I'm still awake. Second night in a row that I can't sleep. There are no sounds. Nothing is settling. I need to move, and maybe, I don't know. Dear Mom, I have never ever said Mom, not out loud. I've never called anyone that. I've never even called you that, and you are my mom. You were. You would have been, and you would have called me son. Son, Sonny. Or maybe Buddy or Peanut or Waffle, like Patty calls her little sister. And you would have smelled like pancakes. And we would have had a secret handshake and a secret language and a secret dance routine that we would have performed at Daryl's birthday parties. Because if you were here, Daryl would have birthday parties. If you were here, I would have birthday parties. You would probably be planning one right now, for Saturday, my birthday. And you would know that I would want you to throw me a surprise party. Because you would know me. You would know that I've never spoken on the phone to anyone my age. That I don't have anyone my age's phone number. That I've had teammates but never friends, until the Defenders, and even they don't know my birthday is Saturday. And on Saturday nights, we would do something fun like eat pizza or watch movies or make up dance routines. And I would probably have to tell you that your dancing wasn't great, but that I can make it better and help you get your booms and ticks right, and you would thank me. Not many people thank me for much, but you would thank me for that, and for helping you clean up the house, and for helping you do other things that I can't think of right now. But you would thank me, and I would thank you, and then we would hug, and you would smell like pancakes, and we'd make pancakes, and I would tell you how many pancakes Aurelia has had me eat over the years, which I think is over 1,000. And I'd have to lay back in the chair in the living room until my stomach stopped dancing to the fried batter. Fried batter. But the chair wouldn't be there because it would be in your office. So I would probably have to lay down on the floor or beg Aurelia to take me to your office so you could fix me like everybody says mothers can. But I'd kick back and complain about my ROI and how a stomachache isn't a good one, but that you wouldn't have quit. you wouldn't have given up on eating pancakes or learning how to measure batter better. If only you hadn't given up on me. On us. I'm sorry, I don't mean that. I know you didn't. Did you? I hope you didn't. Of course not. Why would you give up on the plan? You wouldn't do that. You and Daryl had been planning everything since y'all were kids, step by step to the finish line. But you pulled up early, too. Plans change. Maybe I was the wrench in the plan. Have you ever heard that? Wrench in the plan? I can't be a wrench, not hard enough, not steel, and I can't fit around nothing to loosen it up. What else do I need you to know? Aurelia is my best friend, which is cool because she was also your best friend. And best friends trust each other. And usually best friends have a lot in common, so sometimes when I'm with her, when we're in the car, I look over and pretend she's you. I pretend she's you turning the radio up and bopping around in her seat. I pretend she's you playing silly name games like Big Money Sunny and stuff like that. But I know she's not. But I still pretend. Maybe you would have a bunch of stars tattooed on you. Maybe you'd have weird colored hair and the coolest therapist ever. And you would sit me down and tell me to tell you what's wrong. And I would say, Dear Daryl, Dad, 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 Dad. You looked cool in your tan suit. I hope you're having a good date with Miss Linda. I hope she makes you smile a little. I think you deserve it. Dear Daryl, I wish stuff. I wish stuff like a good job from you. And if you don't want to talk much, maybe just a hug? Maybe a kiss on the forehead like how I kissed my discus. But I'm not as cold or as hard, and neither are you. I wish you knew that. I wish you knew I know that. And I wish I knew why you made me call you Daryl and not Dad. And I wish we weren't like statues with no arms. I wish we weren't like puzzles.